Welcome back to another episode of The Sweet Spot. This is John Sherman from the Four Foundations of Golf. And as always, I'm joined by.
Adam from Adam Young Golf.
So before we hit record, this is what you and I do. We kind of brainstorm the topics we're potentially bringing. And you posed a topic that I was not actually bringing to this episode, but it's one I was still working on at the same time. So I guess we both have similar things to discuss and explore today. So what is that? I'll let you tee us off here. What's on your mind?
It's on the logical fallacies topic called false dichotomies. The idea that if you think one thing, that automatically the opposite is not true. Say, for example, usually follows this structure. So I might say, hey, X has some advantages. So I might say in short game, for example, hey, look at these advantages that Steeper has. And then average person or the person on social media might reframe that as, so you think Y is bad, right? So it's kind of a straw man / false
Yeah,
dichotomy.
so
It's
that's
basically,
more of like an error. You could say like it's an error in reasoning. It's like faulty logic, something like
yeah,
that.
it forces a debate into like a tribal binary. Oh, you have to be in this camp. You can't be in the other camp. And you see this constantly on Twitter and Instagram. It's to the point where you can't say anything anymore on social media, because if you say something, people automatically interpret it as, oh, well, you're in this camp then, and the opposite must not be true. Um, so I might say I've got some examples here, but
Well, it's kind of like it's so I'm thinking about the words like some of the things I was thinking of are actually paradoxes, which is I think a little different. That's when like two opposing views can be kind of true at once. It's not necessarily in its most literal form, two things can be true at once. Isn't a paradox all the time, but a paradox does have opposing viewpoints that could be kind of true at the same time. So my thoughts are a little different, but in the same realm as what this is. But yeah, I think in general, the way I do think about it is like the two things being true at once is that it's very hard. And I challenge myself on this all the time to think about whether it's a political figure, a belief, a life belief, whatever it is that you can have opposing viewpoints in your head that also are true. Like it, and most, I think the modern world is like forcing us into like, you got to pick one. Like you got to be on one side or the other. And you see that in golf debates. It's like, what team are you on? Like it's just like the same thing over and over again. I find it exhausting because I'm always like, well, it's got to be somewhere in between, right? The truth. Like it can't
yeah, and
always
I
be
mean
this.
that's why our show, The Sweet Spot, that's why the name of it
Yeah,
is
that's why we called it
so
the sweet
apt,
spot.
because we like to explore all ends of the spectrum. It's like we did 2 hours on alignment.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can't just say alignment is so important. You have to align perfectly at the target, because there's a lot to discuss with that, as we talked about in the 2 hours. But it doesn't mean if I say alignment, you don't have to align perfectly. That doesn't mean alignment is irrelevant. So
Yes,
that's
yeah.
an idea of false dichotomy. So I got the official definition up here. I just looked at it. The false dichotomy, a false binary, it's an informal fallacy based on a premise. Basically, erroneously limits what options are available. So you are either here or this. You can't be anywhere in between. And the problem is a, a good coach or someone with critical thinking skills is often never in an either or position. They see the nuance and they know when certain things apply. So, like on the blocked random practice, yes, I know when blocked applies and I know when random applies. But even within that, I might say something like, hey, blocked practice is probably better if you are a beginner and you are just learning something new and you need to get a lot of iterations in and make things simpler. I will say that. But at the same time, I'll even question my own belief and say, well, actually, there's not a lot of research on that. So even that might not be true. Now, I believe that to be true based on certain things, but I'm open to questioning my own beliefs as well. To me, beliefs are just starting points that, can be changed and evolved over time and applied differently in different scenarios. I hope this episode or some of the examples we go through just gets people thinking a little bit more critically and understanding certain things. But the problem with social media is when you post something now, I'm always thinking, well, how is this going to be misinterpreted? And
How
then you're
your
going to have to
words get
put,
twisted.
yeah, and then you have to put endless disclaimers in a post. And it still gets misinterpreted anyways. You get to this point of almost paralysis by analysis. Like you might say something and then be like, oh, but people might say this about it. It's like if you say, oh, face is really important. Face is the most important thing for direction. People will then go, oh, well, it doesn't well, path still matters. If the path is offline, it's like, yes, it is, but face has a greater percentage, and typically and then you have to go into all these different things, and the social media post becomes a freaking 10,000 word long
My
dissertation, and it's still misinterpreted because no one reads through it.
favorite Twitter post of all time, I forget who wrote it. It was years ago, and they just similar instance where someone posted something and people filled it up with a million different takes and the response was, I'm so sorry my post didn't take into account your entire existence. Like someone in 280 characters, or it might have been 140 characters by then, could provide like total nuance to like the thousand different interpretations of those words. I mean, that's what it is though, unfortunately. That is like when you put something out there, and I think it is helpful too, because there have been times where I've made a statement about what I believe to be true about golf improvement. And then some of the people's responses who disagreed with it, I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't think of it that way before. So
Yeah.
there is that side of it. Some of it's in bad faith, some of it's in good faith.
Hmm. I think
But
that's the
yeah,
key there. What faith is it in?
yeah, and that's hard to discern because you a lot of times you're reading people's words, so you're not getting the tone of their voice. That's very hard to interpret that.
Yeah, my mistake, one of the ones that I did recently was I posted Rory. There was a picture of him hitting 5 up on it and hitting a bomb. And I typed something out like, hey, lots of good drivers of the ball hit up on it. Rory, Bubba, lots of the LPGA players, which I think the average golfers should look more towards because the LPGA have more similar speeds to the average golfer. I hit up on it, and I don't say that to be
I hit
narcissistic.
5
It's
up on it.
more
I hit 5 up on it.
I actually hit 9 up on it on average. And my strength is accuracy and efficiency. Now, I'm still not a long hitter because I have pathetic speed. I've always had pathetic speed. Yes, I'm working on it. But, lots of people say, you can't hit up on it. You'll spray it everywhere. And I'm like, well, I hit 9 up on it and I don't spray it everywhere. Lots of the LPGA hit up on it and they don't spray it everywhere.
I
Some of the
think that
best
was like
drivers hit
yeah,
up on it.
that was a huge debate. I think Brandel Chambly got into it directly with Rory on this, if I'm remembering, maybe 5 or 6 years ago on Twitter of all places, where I think Rory posted his TrackMan numbers to I think Brandel was in the camp at that time of saying like, oh, hitting up on it is not good for accuracy. And then they kind of like had this debate. If I'm remembering that correctly, maybe someone can correct me, but that was my it seemed like a big flare up before the whole chipping thing. There's always
Yeah,
these like
yeah.
things like the shaft lean and hitting down on it with chipping is the newer thing. But when the TrackMan stuff started coming out and then the hitting up on it thing came out, there was a lot of people who were like, no, you need to hit down on it to have more control over your tee shots. And that's just not true. For some
Well,
players,
that's
it's
false.
true. Yeah,
That's
for some
false
players, it might
anyway.
be true, but not
And
for
again,
everyone.
that argument is nuanced because like you have to you can look at groups of golfers. I mean, if hitting down on it automatically made you accurate, then I
Yeah.
mean, almost every amateur I get on there sprays it everywhere, hits down on it. So,
Yeah,
and they're
that's what
spraying it
most people
everywhere.
that's what most people suffer with is a very negative angle of attack because they're swinging their driver like they're irons and then they're hitting it nowhere.
Yeah, but again, I don't want to say that hitting down on it makes you spray it everywhere. I'm just saying that that was going to be my point is that you can't just look at averages, right? Because if I just post Rory and say, hey, hitting up on it, lots of good players do that, that's one view. The false dichotomy there is then the person saying, So you're saying hitting down is bad. And I've had that on the post. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I've so I made the I made the incorrect decision to, instead of writing a nuanced post that was like a dissertation, I just posted Rory's swing and I put in quotes. What did I put? But tour average is 1 degree down, laughing emoji in quotes, basically
Yeah.
saying that every time
Yeah, I
you
mean,
post someone who hits it up, someone's inevitably going to say, yeah, but the tour average is 1 down. And it's just like,
you were kind of asking for it with that post. I didn't see it, but you're
well, what I
asking for
didn't
it.
expect was people would misinterpret what I say. I had one guy in the DM say, so you're saying the Trackman averages are wrong? I'm like, no, the Trackman averages are what they are. The Trackman average is not wrong. But I said, if you stick your head in the oven and your ass in the freezer, your average body temperature is probably okay. But, that's just to say the averages are just 1 point. There can be a spectrum along that. You have good players who hit up on it. You have good players who hit down on it. I'm sure some of the best drivers of the ball hit 2, 3, probably some even 5 degree down.
With plenty of swing speed to spare. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, if you look at things like what optimizes carry distance, well, hitting up on it, you look at the ping chart, it's undeniable. Hitting up on it is going to optimize carry distance. Now, does that mean that's optimal for everybody? No, because we have to take into account accuracy as well. Some people may try and hit up on it more and start to leak it everywhere. Some players might try to hit up on it and hit it more accurately. I am one of those players. I moved from when I can hit 5 down, I can hit 0, I can hit 5 up, and I can hit 10 up. For me, hitting 5 up and 10 up, same accuracy is where my accuracy lives. If I hit 5 down, I spray it everywhere and I lose a lot of distance as well. So yeah, it's like I said, it's nuanced, right? And people just want to put you in this camp of, if I say hitting up is okay and some of the best players do it, and it doesn't necessarily make you less accurate, people want to put you into the cap of, so you're saying hitting down is bad. Nope, not saying
Yeah.
that. Not
Well,
saying
it's
that. Don't
just,
put
yeah. I
words in my
mean,
mouth. Don't
yeah.
straw man me.
My words on that topic would be what we now know about the game of golf in terms of scoring capability is that distance matters more than we used to think. And if you look at most golfers, they struggle to score with their irons because they're too far away from the green. The ShotScope came out with a really cool report. Maybe we'll get into it next episode, but yeah, it reinforces a lot of the stuff of what a good tee shots and approach shots look like. And like, yeah, a lot of the game is being able to get it close enough to the green so you have an opportunity to hit it. And most golfers, if you look at them, yeah, they're hitting 2, 3, 4 degrees down on it. Their average swing speed for a male is about in the 90 to low 90 mile per hour range. So that means that you are leaving yourself with, these 210, 220, 230 yard tee shots that make the game harder from you. And if you did learn how to hit up on it and found that extra 10, 20, or 30 yards, your scoring potential goes down. Now, does that mean everyone should learn how to hit up on it? No, because some of those players might hit it worse hitting up on it. But it's still worth exploring because that is a distance unlock that a lot of golfers can do without adding swing speed. It's efficient.
And the false assumption here is that hitting up makes you less accurate. Look, I've done intervention. You have these different levels of evidence, right? You've got anecdotal evidence. You've got more correlation evidence. So you can say, okay, what do all the best players do? What do all the worst players do? You can even bucket them and say, so what do the longest drivers do? What do the drivers with the best strokes gained do? And then you've got probably the best type of evidence, I would say, is intervention data. That's where you take someone, you change something in them, and then you look at how that change affects them. And as an instructor, that is what I have done. Thousands of iterations where I've taken golfers who hit down on it, I've made them hit up on it, and yes, some people get less accurate when they do it. Sometimes that's just because it's a new movement, right? Sometimes it's just because they've hit down on it for 40 years and you're changing them to hit up on it a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't come back. Now, what decides whether I do that change with someone? Well, if it's a tour player who's hit down on it for years, we might not change that because it might not be necessary. They might already
Or if
have
that
everything.
person was swinging at 105, 110 miles an hour, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
you've got
120.
like you're not once you cross a certain threshold with swing speed, then the iron game doesn't become that big of a problem for you because the proximity is. But then you look at the player, it's like you're hitting your drives 215, and I think you might have an extra 20 yards in you. Like that will give you more strokes than the player who is already at 110. They stand less to gain from hitting up on it than you do. So that's why you explore it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you might take might not take the gamble, and you say, "Hey, you're a tour pro here.
Yeah,
This is
that's
a
a
big
totally
gamble.
different
This could
calculus. Yeah,
ruin."
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
you've got to have balls to be able to make that decision. Chris Como is a good example of someone who would talk about that better because he deals with tour players every day. So sometimes you won't make the gamble. Sometimes you're just like, look, you got nothing to lose here. You spray it everywhere and you hit it so short because you're hitting 5 down on it. Let's take the gamble. Let's hit up on it. You could get more accuracy and more distance. At worst, you're going to get more distance. And then some people are in the middle ground. It's like you have to sit down and have a discussion and say, well, look, this is what you stand to gain. We know if someone launches the ball 10 degrees and spins it 3,000, we know that, well, if we get your launch up to 16, and spin, you're going to gain X amount of distance at your speed. So we can predict that. And then we can say that would, in terms of distance, gain you, if they gain 20 yards a shot, that is, between 1.5 and 3 shots a round for an amateur golfer. So
Yeah,
we say,
it's
right, is
again,
this worth it to you?
it's worth more to the shorter hitter than the longer hitter, generally
Yeah,
speaking.
more to the amateur. Yeah, I think it's .2 of a shot per 20 yards. So you might be on the middle with that, and you discuss it with the person. You say, "Hey, is this something we want to explore here?" And having done these interventions with players so many times, I see more players hit up on it and gain accuracy than I do see them hit up and lose accuracy. So it's not always a case of hitting up makes you hit it less accurate. But even if it was, right? Say you hit up on it, you gain 20 yards, but you miss 2 fairways more. Well, you're still mathematically, according to strokes gained, you're still positive there. If you hit up on it and gain 20 yards and that saves you 3 shots a round, well, if you knock 2 more shots in the rough, what does that cost you? .3 of a shot each rough shot?
Yeah, that's for most golfers. Yeah, I mean, depending on the
Yes, you've
course you play,
lost
but
point
yeah,
0.6.
yeah,
You've gained 3 shots from distance. You've lost point 0.6 from accuracy. So therefore, it's a net positive. And
yeah.
so we can
It's
predict all these things.
it's always a hard thing to do. Good friend of mine, fast swing speed, great tournament player, hits 1-2 down on it, hits a squeeze cut. He's tried to hit up on it, like we've talked about. He just doesn't work under pressure. Forget it. It's like I always tell him, forget it then. What's it worth to you? It's not worth it because, for him to compete at a very high level and in those moments where like he might be trying to win a golf tournament, like you don't want to be if it doesn't suit you, then you have to say like, all right, let's put that aside. So yeah, I guess that's the difficulty we always revisit on this show of that, there's very few instances outside of like literal ball flight physics laws in golf where you can make these blanketed statements and they can be true because, for the golfers consuming all of this stuff on social media, like they're saying, I've got, the chipping debate thing. I got one guy saying that shallow's, the way to go, and other one saying the shaft's lean. It's like, whose camp am I in? And it's very difficult to filter all of this. And eventually you have to your game and understand like the trade-offs. And that's hard to do, right? That's not an easy task.
It's not. I try to do it as much as I can. Whenever I'm making social media posts or blog posts or emails, I'm always trying to say the things that we know to be true. So we know that all else being equal, if that face is more closed, the ball's going to go left. All else being equal, if face is more open, the ball's going to go to the right. With an iron. You have to caveat
Yeah.
everything, right? But
Yeah.
actually, it's even pretty true with the drivers now because they've got it down so the gear effect just brings it back to the same place. It just changes the shape. But yeah, so we can say definitive statements, or you could say, hey, steeper attack angles with wedges offer better margins for error when it comes to arc depth errors. So if a player has vertical errors, if they tend to drop down or raise up a little bit, a steeper attack angle is going to actually give them a bigger margin for error. These things are just geometrically true. Now, does that mean that's right for everyone? No. And that's where people then put the false dichotomies. You say that steeper offer these benefits, and people's false dichotomy is automatically, so you're saying shallow is bad. So you're saying everybody should be steep. It's like, no. Joe actually loves those things, Joe Mayo, because he is not a steep all the time type of person. Yet everybody has kind of pipped him as that. He knows that that generates a lot of engagement for
We
him
got to get
to have
Joe
that.
back on for part 2 of that discussion.
Yeah,
He's
Joe knows
still
what he's doing.
I
He's
don't go
very good.
on I don't go on Instagram much, but the few times I look at him, he's still fighting that fight.
Yeah. But yeah, on the hitting up, hitting down, hitting up makes you less accurate. Like I said, no, it doesn't necessarily. My strength, I hit 9 up, and my strength is accuracy. In terms of strokes gained, gain 1.5 strokes on pros with accuracy, and I lose 1.5 strokes with distance. So it kind of balances out there. And then the LPGA, lots of them hit up on it as well, and they're some of the most accurate drivers in the game. So it doesn't mean that you are less accurate. And anyway, do you know what actually creates accuracy? Do you know why do people say that hitting down makes it more accurate? What's
Yeah,
the
I
argument
don't
there?
know. It's more of a, when you think of accuracy, that's a left-right question. So, if you showed me that golfers who hit down on it had tighter face control, then I'd be like, okay, I'll listen to that. Or hitting up on it increases, face controlled variability, then I'd be like, oh, well, then it would make you less accurate. But I've
But
not
there's no
seen
reason why
anything
that
where,
would be
yeah,
true.
exactly. That, geometrically, that doesn't make sense. Now, for some players, yeah, for some reason, if they were hitting 4 down on it and you got them to hit 5 up on it, maybe something else happened in their body with their wrist angles or how they control it. And then the face gets way open or way closed. Then you would go to that player and be like, well, I don't know about this for you. This seems to be, or at least on your first few attempts, it seems to be increasing or decreasing your face control. But
Yeah, I
just
mean,
to make it blanket, that's what it would have to boil down to, is saying that if you are less accurate by hitting up on it, it would need to increase the variability of your face control.
yes, there's 3 kind of arguments you could say from it. One would be the face control one, which could be true for certain subsets of people,
Yep.
but might not be true for everybody. Like I hit up on it 9 degrees, and my face standard deviation with the driver is exactly the same as what it is with an iron. It's about 1 degree on good days. So I have the same face control with an iron as I do with a driver. The other argument is a spin loft one. So people say, oh, well, when you hit down on it, you're going to increase spin loft. So the ball's going to have more backspin and it's going to stay straighter. While I would say, yes, that is true from a physics perspective, if that's your argument, just hit a bloody 3-wood in those scenarios. If you want to hit a low launching high spinner and you think that's a more accurate shot, just hit a 3-wood. Have the driver as your bombing club. And if you don't want to, don't castrate your driver by hitting down on it and having a low launching high spinner unless it's needed. For me, my driver is when I want to hit it as far as I can. And if I need to hit the fairway, I hit a 3-wood. And yes, my 3-wood is materially more accurate. The other argument is a
Mine
distance
is
one.
not.
Yeah, for lots of people, it's not. For me, it is. I have really old 3-woods, so I don't know whether that has something to do with it. But the other argument would be a trigonometry argument. It's like, oh, well, if you hit your driver 30 yards farther, then 1 degree offline is X amount more. What is it? For every 60 yards of travel, 1 degree is 1 yard or something like that. So even from a trigonometry point of view, it's pretty negligible. Or the ball staying on the ground longer, how that changes the accuracy that much, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that noticeable. And again, you go to the math of it, and okay, you miss 2 more fairways by hitting up on it. But still, if you gain 20 yards, 30 yards, you're net positive strokes gained. So it's like, even if you are less accurate with hitting up on it, you still have to weigh it up mathematically and see it could still be a benefit. There's not really a strong argument. There are arguments, but they're so weak for why hitting down on it would make you more accurate that to
It,
me is just like it
it
gets washed out by the strokes gained.
yeah, and I would say, the broader theme here with the topic, you're bringing up is that, yeah, the golfer in the end needs to decide when they see this stuff, like, am I going to just blindly accept one version of this? Up is great, down is bad, or vice versa? Or am I going to figure it out for myself and see? I mean, most people have no idea, right? In the first place, like they have, go on a launch mod or go on a TrackMan, see what it is. Are you a good driver of the golf ball? Like, do you struggle with these things? Oh, well, I didn't know that. I'm hitting 7 down on it. That's a lot. So yeah, you kind of have to take these online debates that you see and these camps that people want to put themselves into and realize that I don't think that serves the end user the best, right? Because I
Yeah.
see it a lot in like so many different topics. It's like health, like, some people want to be extreme with their health takes. So they say, like, oh, you got to eat. I'm not going to start saying the specifics. I would open up that can of worms. But like for people to stand out online, they have to make extreme takes. Like they have to. Like that is what, I will just caution everyone. This is a general word of caution to all of you because you are watching YouTube and going on social media all the time. The way the algorithms are people, right? They're trying to get the most engagement out of you. And when content creators test out different forms of content and see what gets rewarded by the algorithm, i.e. the audience, most of the time, like, yeah, you have to say something that is inflammatory, emotion evoking, like challenging. I think you and I try and do that responsibly, but some people like do weaponize it and they'll say, like, "Oh, for you to be healthy, you need to eat these things." And it's like, oh God, like that is crazy. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's very extreme. So that's unfortunately like where things have headed is for people to stand out online you need to have a wild take almost to be noticed.
I think one of my biggest problems, I have many, but you actually have this one as well, John, is we think in nuance, right? We don't think black and white. That's why this podcast is so good for us because we get to the safety of our little bubble, explore all these different things without false dichotomies being thrown at us. So, yeah, biggest problem is I enjoy discussing ideas. I'll even discuss the opposite side of my own argument occasionally, even if I don't agree with it. Because one of the things that I always got taught was, hey, what is your opinion? See if you can debate the opposite of that because it forces you to then go off and see where there are holes in your argument. So I'll sometimes, discuss people with in forums. An example of this might be, I believe, just like Scott Fawcett, the most golfers should play a stock shot. Just like we discussed in the last time, that might be a straight shot, it might be a draw, it might be a fade, it might be a certain percentage of all those, but they should play for the vast majority a stock shot. They shouldn't be trying to shape it both ways into targets. However, I still, at the same time, believe that there may be advantages to hitting it both ways, as we discussed. Like a fade, I've found in my data that fades tend to change the dispersion pattern. They become more elongated front to back, but tighter left to right, and draws the opposite. So you can think of these, you got these two extremes into the spectrum, hit one stock shot, shape it both ways. I believe both can be true. It just may apply to a certain individual or certain times, and there's nuance to it. Now, I'm typically going to say the thing that applies to more people more often, but at the same time, I enjoy exploring the nuance as well. I think it's intellectually stimulating. An example of that is the random versus block debate, random practice versus blocked. Now, on that, why do I promote random more? Because how many golfers do you have to tell to do more block practice? You go up to a range, everybody's doing block practice. If you go there and say, hey, you need to do more block practice, you need to increase the percentage you practice as block practice, basically worthless to all these golfers. Whereas if you say, hey, there's this something called random practice here, it's where you actually switch targets and it has these advantages associated with it. So for example, with putting, if your issue is reading break, that is a prediction error, right? We
Yeah,
stand over a
you can
putt and
hit 100 7-footers in a row and it's not going to fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first time you come to a putt, you have to ask yourself, how much do I think this is going to break? Oh, I think this is going to break 6 inches. And then you hit your shot, and there's an execution component of it. Like, did you execute it? And then you see, did I get my read correct? So if I hit a ball and then I see, oh, that actually broke a full foot. Now I know, oh, that was a foot of break. It is pointless me doing another iteration of that for prediction. Yes, execution, another rep of that one may work on my execution if that's the issue. So when you have a golfer like me who is, poor at putting, I have to ask, well, what's my issue? Is it execution or is it prediction? I know for me it's not execution. I can stand on a flat mat, I can stand on a certain curved putt and just roll endlessly into the cup. It's not prediction. Did you see that thing I did last year where I hit 240
Yeah, I think I remember
putts?
that.
And I think I hold 237 of them. So everybody's telling me, you need to change your putter, you need to change your stroke. I'm like, it's not an execution error. I can roll the ball on my line. I just suck at picking the right line. I cannot predict the line because I'm not practicing. So then I say, okay, well, if my error is prediction, how do I best improve prediction? And that is to go off and predict a bunch of different shots. I got to stand there and predict one putt and say, oh, how did this match my prediction? Then I have to go off to a different putt and then do another prediction cycle. Say, oh, this one I think breaks 3 inches. Oh, no, it broke 12 inches. Oh, I've got this big discrepancy. And then after you do more iterations of that, then your predictions get better. So it's like, but again, back to the point, false dichotomy. If I say random practice has certain benefits to it, improves prediction better than block practice, it doesn't mean
Doesn't
block
mean
practice
block.
is
Yeah,
irrelevant.
no,
Doesn't
it's
mean
quite
I'm
good
saying
still.
that.
Yeah.
It still
Yeah,
has
I would say like
advantages.
all those that's how I always viewed the repetitive practicing too, because I thought back to what I did as a junior golfer, just hitting ball after ball after ball, settling into a groove, thinking I was better than I was, going on the course, losing my mind when those shots were nowhere to be found. And I was like, well, why I did the exact same thing. And I still do plenty of block practice. I just do it better. And but the real X factor is, I think, the comfort on the course and the playing skills for a lot of those people. Like they do have the physical skills and they don't have the playing skills to match. But yeah, I think the answer to me, whenever something like that comes up, is why couldn't you do both? Like, why would you need to show up to the range and only do block practice or only do random practice or only do performance games?
Yeah.
Like, first of
My
all, it'd be
philosophy.
boring. It would just be boring to do one of those all the time, right? Like, just for the sake of, like, if you like practicing and are interested in getting better from it, like, yeah, you're gonna have to mix it up. So you just kinda your brain doesn't go on autopilot where it's kinda like I remember in college, sometimes I'd be so tired and I'd be studying for the test, like, I'd be reading the lines of the textbook, just, like, physically reading it, but I wasn't absorbing knowledge. And I knew, like, you are not studying well right now. Like, I am not going to remember this on the test. I'm just doing the task, but I'm actually not doing it well. And I won't remember it when the pressure's on during the test. Like, that's to me what happens a lot of the times at most driving ranges is like it's a golfer reading the words but not absorbing them.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different forms of practice. It's not even just blocked and random. For listeners, blocked is hitting the same shot over and over again. If you're
They
new to
have
the
to know at this
podcast,
point. There's no way they
if you're
don't
new
know
to
at
the
this
podcast,
point.
random is switching clubs. So different targets, different clubs, yeah, different shot types, maybe. You even have serial practice. So that might be if you hit 60, 70, 80, 90, 60, 70, 80, 90. That's serial practice. You've got something, I called it broken practice. I don't know if that's an official term, but it's basically what Scott would talk as blocked. Scott Fawcett, which is blocked practice. You're doing the same club to the same target, but you're stepping out of the bay, taking your hands
Yeah.
off, forcing yourself to
And I think,
reset yourself.
I'll hopefully not put words in Scott's mouth, but like that's what he's referring to when he talks about, he's like, go to any PJ Tour event and watch how they practice. They're doing block practice. And he's right. They are a lot of the times, but they also are
It's
taking
not
a
rake
step
and hit.
back. Yeah, they're not raking and hitting. Like they are putting a lot of thought and intent into each shot and absorbing a ton of feedback after each shot. They're having a conversation with their instructor if they're there. Like there is a lot going on there. And yeah, that's what I tried to do when I'm doing block practice is just like really not rake and hit. And I do it sometimes still. It's like I just
Yeah, I
I'll
rake and hit occasionally
yeah,
as
my
well, but I
brain
know
will
the
just like
limits of it.
yeah, I'll just like turn off and it's just like, that's fine too sometimes. Like you don't always have to be locked in.
Yeah. In fact, the reason why I did a lot of kind of rake and hit practice at the start was physical conditioning.
Yeah,
I
it's good
just wanted to
exercise too.
get some exercise in. I wanted to condition my body. It's like, right, I got 30 minutes. I want to get 100 balls in. I can't do that, or it's harder to do that with a more randomized practice or playing GS Pro. But now my body's conditioned. I'm like, well, hey, I'm hitting it great in block practice, but it's not translating to the golf course. Let's play more GS Pro rounds. Let's put myself under more random pressure. And this is it. You have other types of practice as well. You've got differential practice. You've got variability practice as well. And I understand through my teaching and my data collection when these things apply more. Now, you never know fully. It's not like 100% certainty, but I can say with 90% certainty that say someone is hitting shanks and they cannot move it to the toe, then doing a differential practice drill is the fastest way for someone to unlock that skill, right? So getting them to actively hit and learn how to hit the other side of the face is a faster way than, say, calibrating the center, right? So say I've got two shankers and get one person to hit the center over and over and one person to practice hitting the toe over and over. When you test them a week later, the one who hits the toe or has practiced hitting the toe is going to have reduced shank rate, and they're going to be able to fix themselves faster as well. Similarly, I had a player the other day, he hit one shank on the course and then he proceeded to hit four in a row after that. He doesn't have the ability to change. Whereas I don't know if you saw my social media post, but I was warming up the other day and my first wedge shot of the day was a shank. It's the first time I've done it in 2 or 3 years, right? I
Shanks
shanked
happen.
it. But the next one, you can guarantee was not a shank. In fact, I don't think I've ever shanked two in a row because I've trained the ability to change it. If I hit one shank, the next one I know how to move it more towards the toe. What form of practice develops that better? Differential practice. So different practices have different reasons for them. If someone is struggling to do something, someone is struggling to make a change, blocked practice may be more beneficial in that regard. If someone's made the change, so I've got another player who we've changed his path from 7 degrees out to in to much more neutral, and he's hitting the ball two, maybe even three clubs farther. He's hitting it better. He's hitting it more accurate, but he's doing it only in block practice. When he gets on the course, he goes straight back to -7. In fact, he has his own quad and he takes it on the course with it. He contacted me saying,
Nice.
and you know what? Actually, he figured this out. Terry, if you're listening, well done for figuring this out yourself. He said, Adam, this sucks because I can hit that zero path or close to it every time in my practice. And I get on the course and I go straight to -7. He said, this hitting ball after ball is just not working for me. And he figured it out himself. I'm going to step out of the bay. I'm going to switch clubs, hit a driver, then a 7-iron. And over the last few weeks has improved his ability to take it out on the golf course. So I know that's an N=1, but that applies to a lot of people as well. I
Well,
know that because
I think that's the thing is like everyone is an N=1, right? So that's kind of the difficulty of what I was saying before is when you hear someone saying, well, this has to be true, like, or this has to be wrong. Maybe not for you. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, then I look at N=100 as well. I look at
Yeah.
that and I say, okay, well, this works for 75% of people. So that's a good starting point
Yeah.
then
There's
to say,
probabilities. And then
yeah,
you hopefully use those to start with that information and then adjust because it probably has a higher chance of success. Not a guarantee though. There's no guarantees in golf. There just aren't.
exactly. So if you see me say random practice has these advantages, it doesn't mean that block practice is irrelevant.
Well, it's just, some of the things that I have, I won't go through all of them, but it's also like a similar exercise where you have to maybe challenge your own mind to consider opposing ideas. I would think these are more paradoxes. So, a definition of a paradox is it's a truth that seems contradictory at first glance. So for example, like going to our block practice example, practicing more can make you worse, right? So for certain golfers, if they practice more, the wrong things, they reinforce the wrong traits of their swing and they go on the course and they don't play well. Like, and that is a large bucket of golfers who say, I practice a lot. I'm not getting any better. In fact, I've gotten worse. That's
Or
a
when
tough one to
changing
wrap
your
yeah, but that's a tough one to wrap your head around because you're like, I'm putting the time in. I get these emails all the time. I'm sure you do too of golf be like, I'm dedicating my entire life to this game and I've gotten worse. Like, what the hell? Like, that
or a
doesn't
good
make sense.
paradox that sometimes holds true, not always, is when you're changing your swing, sometimes you get worse to get better.
Yeah, that's another one I have on the
Sometimes.
list. Yeah, that's
Don't straw
another
man
one.
me into saying
Yeah,
every
well, I
time.
won't straw man you, but
Sometimes.
another one on my list was your scores are worse, but you're getting better. And
Yeah.
that is something that could happen is that you and I think a lot of people who listen to this show are the type of golfer who might fall victim to this, myself included, is that when we understand something intellectually, so let's say learned a lot of the best practices that we discuss on the show, whether they're strategic, procedural, mental techniques, practice techniques. So you've started to understand what better golf looks like. Like you understand the stats, like you get it. Or maybe you're working with a swing instructor and you're like, we think we're working on the right thing, but your next 5 to 10 rounds, your scores might not be better. And that is very difficult for people who like to take up golf, who like to put in time and see results and realize that, yeah, there's a possibility where I might start doing the right things, but they might not translate immediately because golf is, you might know how to pick the right targets stepping on the course and you're thinking about it all week. And then Saturday comes around and you're 7 over par after 3 holes and you're in the trees and you're like, oh, what do I do? And you're just like, everything's so complicated and you lose sight of what all that optimal information was and you're like that doesn't mean it wasn't right or it wasn't going to work eventually. It just means like you need more reps and time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a tough paradox for some people is like you could do the right things and your scores could be worse in the short term. Now in the long term I'd want to see them improve, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Examples from Terry, that guy, initially when we changed his path from 7 degrees out to in to more neutral, in the first few shots, he hit the heel of the club.
Mm.
And so they were obviously very bad shots. Now, on his own, he probably would have given up there. But I said, no, that was great. If you look at the quad numbers, the path was neutral. We just need to move that more towards a toe. And then after 3, 4, 5 swings, then he hit his first flush shot with this more neutral path. And his 7-iron, instead of going 120, went 150. And he's like, whoa, oh my God, is that real? And so, but he had to go through that. I had to drag him through that. Lots of players would give up initially. Now, even from a longer term perspective, now he's hitting it farther. That poses his own issues because he's on the golf course and he's standing there 130 yards away, which or 120 yards away, which used to be his 7-iron. And now he's standing there with a wedge. And so he's just not very confident with it. And then other errors occur. Like he'll stand there. He said for the first few shots, he'd stand there with a wedge and he'd just be trying to bust it there because he thinks he has to because he's never hit a wedge that far before. So he'd try and bust it, hit it farther. And then he'd either like chunk it because he's trying to hit it harder than normal, or he'd hit it well. And then that wedge would fly too far. That wedge would fly 130. And he's like, this is crazy. I'm hitting it so far. So he has to adjust his distances. His brain also is used to seeing a ball curve one way. And so aim closer to the flag initially for him was a harder task. Now he's gotten used to it, and so he's starting to play really well. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
hard
it takes
making these
time.
transitions. Yep. Another one that I did for a very long time. Here's another paradox that I came up with. Playing safer blows up your scores. So for a risk averse type person, they would assume that oh, if I just, hit iron off of every tee and choose the safest target and feel like I can control my swing, it's like you get this like warm and fuzzy feeling inside. Like if I'm just safe, I can't make mistakes. And then
Yeah,
two
just
things
hit a
happen.
7-iron off every tee, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you get a wedge off every tee. So two things happen. Like one, you're going to make some strategic mistakes. So, I guess the terms that people recognize with course management are aggressive and conservative, but I mean, it really should be optimal or not. So off the tee, like yeah, playing it too safe, now you're just leaving yourself very far away from the hole. Now, that could work with iron play and wedges. I often say like people play too aggressively there without realizing it. But in general, like you would have suboptimal strategy because you're trying to protect your score, you're trying to be safe. But I think the worst part of it is really what you do with your body and your mind. So think of times where maybe you started off your round well and then you're like, oh, I've only got 8 holes left. Let me protect this thing, and then all of a sudden, like, I would genuinely start swinging slower. Like, I would just I know for a fact my body would move slower. I was literally trying to protect an errant shot by, like, slowing down my swing and feeling like it was controlled. Or even just in general, just being in this, like, mode of, I need to be safe now because I have to protect this score. And what I didn't realize and other golfers don't realize is that you're not entitled to that score. Like, you have to finish. And if anything, I've realized that kind of going for it, not that doesn't mean playing recklessly, but like almost feeding into the opposite of saying like, I can't be safe here. I need to stick with the plan and do what I'm going to do in order to give myself a better chance to score, because playing it too safe, either strategically or swing or just overall mentality, that's usually when the big mistakes show up. When you make those like, oh, I got to protect this thing now. And like, oh, I just made a triple bogey. I just chunked that wedge because you were just like trying to be a robot with it. And I think one of the biggest paradoxes in golf that people fall victim to is that safety equals lower scores. And it's just not true.
Yeah, fear of failure is often something that brings about it.
Yeah, it could be a number of things, but I know that there is a certain, and I'm not saying these are universal truths for everyone, but a lot of golfers view the game as that, as they're like, if I just be the turtle in the shell, like I can't blow up and play poorly. And the more you try and control and protect this thing, the more it kind of blows up on you, is my point.
Here's one that I actually had this in notes as a separate topic, but it's kind of a paradox is confidence doesn't always improve you. You think it
Mm,
would, because one of the arguments with block practice is, oh, because you're performing better on the range, confidence improves.
mm.
And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't
False
always
confidence.
make you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's false confidence because I mean, I've talked a million times about I've hit so many good shots when unconfident, and I've hit so many bad shots when I'm confident as hell. And I've done the reverse as well. I've hit good shots when I'm confident and poor shots when I'm unconfident. So I've done all the full gamut. That's why I said for me, it's almost it's less of a correlation than most people think. I know there'll be some people arguing that and not saying confidence is irrelevant. There's a bell curve here. My personal opinion is confidence is something to be managed. You don't wanna be, like, standing over a shot thinking, I'm just, like, horrendous here. Like, I've got no hope." That's one end of the spectrum. But then you don't wanna be so confident that you think, "Hey, I hit it at 20 feet every time from 170 yards because that's what I did in my block practice session earlier," because what's that gonna do to your strategy? You're gonna have a more aggressive strategy, and then you're gonna have more big errors as a result of it. For me also,
It's
it's
more,
almost
yeah, it's more about like it's regulating emotion is what it really ends up being a lot of the times.
well, even if it's not emotion, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But even if it's not emotion, it could just be a confidence could be just more of a logical state, standing over a shot, thinking, "Yeah, I'm confident that I can hit this. Therefore, I'm going to take a logically different strategy." Or even from an attention point of view, say I stand over a shot. Sometimes I'll stand over a shot and I'm like, "Oh God, there's water left. I better not hit it left." You know what? That's actually good for me because I then focus and I input feels into my swing that are kind of anti left feels that I know that I've developed on the range. So I can reduce my risk of hitting it left by having that unconfident state. Whereas if I stand up there and I'm oblivious to the left side, I'm far more likely to hit it. And so a confident state for me, if I'm like, oh, that left doesn't matter, or it's not even entering my conscious mind, I have a greater chance of hitting it. Or say I stand over a shot and there's water short. I might stand over that ball thinking, right, I really got to strike this well here. I can't fat this. And then my brain focuses much more on strike quality and that improves my strike quality. So lack of confidence can actually help you sometimes.
I mean, that was on my similar thing on my list is that you can play well while being nervous. So it's just, an expectation that you have to go on the course feeling great all the time is like you're not going to feel great all the time. I mean, we talked about this with Jason Kuhn on the last show. We were talking about yips and some mental performance stuff, and like, yeah, you just have to acknowledge that like there's no way that you can be not nervous at times or uncomfortable. Like it's more of being truthful for that. And there's two perfect examples recently of this. I don't know if you've followed the PJ Tour much, but like the last two winners, or two out of three. So Jacob Bridgman, I remember he won the Genesis Invitational a few weeks ago. First PGA Tour win. I think he's 26. Major breakthrough on a big time course, Riviera, and he looked pretty solid. And then he started getting a little wobbly down the stretch and he pulled it out. And afterwards, they interviewed him and he was just like, I was so nervous. I couldn't feel my hands on the last few holes, like just totally like blacking out. But I did it. And then 2 weeks later, the Cognizant Classic was just played in Palm Beach. And Shane Lowry, major championship winner, Ryder Cup hero, he had a massive, I don't know if you saw what happened. He made two double bogeys in the bear trap on 16. I mean, very like they looked at the shot length data on 16. He fanned like an iron off the tee into the water. I think he was like the only person to do it all day. Just totally left the face open. Then did it again on the par three. Just fanned a 6 or 7 iron way right. And afterwards, he was like, "Yeah, I couldn't feel the club face." He was nervous, and things didn't work out. And as he was saying it out loud, he's like, how could I be so confident at the Ryder Cup? And Bethpage, Europe won, tremendous pressure. And he was like, I was able to do it then. And then I just totally choked here. And he was just like out loud trying to deal with this paradox himself. He's like, how did this happen? He's like, this is a head scratcher.
Well, my version of that, I actually played that tournament in GS Pro as well. And
Yeah.
the first time I came onto that par three, the pin was tucked on the right. I aimed at it so confident,
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
because everything had been moving left all day a little bit. So I'm like, oh, I can just fire at this pin. And that was the first day that the first shot that I flared out right and went in the water. I was standing over it so confidently. Next time I played that hole, I stood over the same shot, remembering, oh, I flared this right. And I was so unconfident, worried about flaying it right. And I hit a good shot just like 10, 15 feet left of the flag. So again, confidence doesn't always correlate with the actual shot
Yeah. I
quality.
just think in terms of what's helpful to the golfer in terms of their like pre-round mindset, I'd rather you be prepared and expecting to feel uncomfortable and nervous at times versus thinking that you need to go out there feeling confident all the time, because no one feels confident all the time. Like that is, if you believe you're confident all the time, then like I think you're selling yourself a bunch of nonsense, right? Like it's a natural thing. So I think it's interesting to explore that and just tell yourself that like, this game is going to throw things at me that will be unpredictable, volatile. I'll feel great maybe on the first four holes. And then I might have a stretch where things seem like they're falling apart, and that's okay. So, but that doesn't mean I can't play well still. Like that doesn't have to limit me. I just think that's, an important paradox about this game to understand. But of course, yeah, nerves can make you choke too and play really poorly as well. Like that is also true. They get the best of you at times, and that's okay also, right? It happens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right,
Let
well,
me
moving down.
let me throw in a let
Yeah,
me
go ahead.
throw in a we'll alternate between false dichotomies and paradoxes.
Hopefully we got these words right. I did look at sometimes
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes like my definition of something in my head is not right, and I did look these up, and I think we're on the right path. But hopefully people
False
will know what we're
dichotomy
talking
and
about.
straw men can be very close together. But so I might say, or we might say, pros all swing it differently. And then person would interpret that as so technique doesn't matter. Or
Yeah,
when I talk about
yeah,
how,
that's a good
well,
one.
if you take it away inside, that can be
Yeah,
okay. It doesn't
yeah,
have
yeah.
to be a
But
perfectly
what about this
parallel
person? Yeah,
takeaway.
yeah.
Yeah, people are like, oh, so takeaway doesn't matter then. It's like, no, takeaway matters. Takeaway affects movements further up the chain and further down the chain. Takeaway matters, but how much it matters and who it matters for is important. Like my friend who takes it historically has taken it away inside all his life, and he's played to a very good handicap, take it away inside and comes over the top, back down on plane. He's done that all his life. And now he's working on a more online takeaway and he's hitting it horrendous. And I just don't think that his body doesn't sequence it well for an on plane takeaway. His body sequences it well for inside over the top. And that is okay. There are lots of pros historically who have done that. Fewer now. Why? Because since the 80s, everybody's been taught the same thing. Let's take it away like this. So you're
Yeah,
going to
if you
see more
start,
people who
yeah,
take it away
if
a
you were,
certain way. It's a trend, it's in vogue.
yeah, yeah. But
But
it
that
would be the
doesn't mean,
difference of someone who was taught in the beginning of the game, let's say they received instruction and they were taught that on plane takeaway versus, yeah, maybe someone like myself or your friend who just naturally, I'm just
yeah,
going to
you.
roll it in the, I'm that person too. So like, yeah, just roll it on the inside. That's just what I defaulted to. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean it's
I
wrong.
and I take it away on the outside. And for us, that's our way of getting a more neutral path. You take it away inside and you have a more neutral path. I take away more outside to get a more neutral path. He takes away inside to get a more neutral path. It's just like it's more important what's happening through impact.
Well, yeah, it's just like the idea that there is no model swing, but technique is still important and skill, how you swing the club is still important,
Yeah,
right?
if someone's swinging it 10 degrees from the inside through impact and their takeaway is also impact, that is a player who may benefit from a more neutral takeaway. But if someone is what's happened to my friend is he has historically had a neutral path with his inside takeaway. He's now changed his takeaway to make it more neutral, but now his path has shifted left because if you take away neutral and come over the top of that, your path is going to be left. So he's wondering why he's lost 60 yards of distance. It's like because you're now cutting across at 8 degrees, but he's happy with his takeaway because his takeaway looks prettier on camera. And it's just like, so yeah, it's, the other argument that I dislike is the idea that if you've got two players, right, one of them takes it away inside and has a neutral path through impact and one of them takes it away textbook in air quotes and has a neutral path. The argument is, oh, the textbook person is going to be more consistent or better. And it's just like, it's such a basic, uneducated argument, really. I understand why people would think that, but you have to go beyond symmetry. Like motor learning doesn't always act logically. Or, Nicholas, for example, he would set up the putts and he would pull his left to righters and push his right to lefters. There's plenty of video footage of that. He's one of the best putters ever. Would Nicholas have been better if he'd aligned to his start line and hit a neutral stroke to both? Maybe. Probably not, because you would have changed his locus of attention. And then that would have had an effect on his speed control. That would have had an effect on his positive variability. So motor learning doesn't always act logically, or motor systems don't always act logically. And so just because something is symmetrical does not make it more consistent necessarily.
Well, it's easier for our brain to process symmetry. It just looks nicer to us. It's neater to us.
Yeah, but
That's
it's
the thing
just
we look
such a
for in people's faces, symmetry, right? Like
basic B argument.
yeah, but
It's
it's
just
like,
come on, be more educated. Go beyond this. Go beyond symmetry. I
but
get it. Yeah,
that's what we are designed to do.
yeah, I've written articles on facial symmetry and how we're attracted towards symmetry,
Yeah, more
evolutionary,
attractive
but
people have more symmetry in their face. It's a
yeah.
thing.
So understand that's an
Yeah,
evolutionary relic of ours and understand
yeah.
that that might not
Or at
apply to
least what
golf
you
swings or motor
sorry,
learning.
I should rephrase that. What people process as attractive at times is symmetry.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
you want to hear one
So,
of my paradoxes now?
yeah.
Okay. This is trying to make people's brains hurt. Making more bogeys will lower your handicap. So, on the surface, like, why would you want to make more bogeys? And then when you really think about like the math around how people shoot their scores, not to beat a dead horse, but the math wasn't clear to me for a long time. In retrospect, it is now. But why does someone get stuck shooting in the high 80s, 90s, and hundreds, where most golfers are stuck. It's not because they're not making enough birdies or pars, it's because they're making too many doubles, triples, and quads, and they're not making enough good bogeys. And the concept of a good bogey is incredibly difficult to understand and value in the moment during a round of golf. And typically, when that happens, is the multiple times you're going to hit an errant tee shot, an errant approach shot, and you're faced with a decision where you're like, hmm, do I kind of go for it here or do I reel it in? That doesn't always guarantee the bogey or not make the triple. But there's all these moments where the emotion and the expectations override kind of rational thinking and all of that. And that realizing that no, the trying to make bogey here is my best path forward versus trying to make par. And that is like, I literally cannot say this enough because I'm trying to remind myself of this too. But that is something that is in like direct opposition because, of course, if you ask someone what they want to do on the golf course, is like, yeah, I want to make a ton of pars. I want to make a ton of stress free pars and some birdies. Like, obviously, like that's what we all want to do. But for most golfers, yeah, making more bogeys is how they become a 5 and 10 handicap and not be stuck at, 12, 15, 20. Yeah, at some point you want to get down to scratch and plus. Yeah, you need to make more pars and a few more birdies, but mostly pars.
So like swapping out a double or triple for a bogey. So like you're stuck
Yeah.
behind a tree, you have the option, well, I can
Yes.
chip out here, make a bogey, or I can try and go for it. I might make the par,
Yeah.
but
You
there's a greater chance this is going to turn into a double or triple if I do that.
yeah, or like you're short sighted and you're like, oh, I want to land this like 5 feet from the pin. And it's like you just don't understand. Like a good shot here would be 15 feet past the pin. So I just kind
That's a
of two
good one,
putt for
yeah.
my bogey. There's all these
That's a good
situations
one
that
that would
pop up.
apply to even our level. Yeah, as you
But
see this
yeah,
little thing where you're like, well, I could get that flop shot
yeah,
over
there's
that bunker and
yeah,
stop
there's
it to 8
always
feet.
yep. There's always this temptation, and sometimes it's the temptation of too much skill. So I think there's plenty of scenarios where the skilled player gets tempted into that. And also there's the player who doesn't know any better also, right? So there's, a golfer who, maybe just doesn't fully grasp the nuance of the game yet for various reasons because it's very difficult to do that where they're just taking on shots that they have no business of taking on. So in either scenario, yeah, you're biting off more than you can chew and making the bigger number versus where you're like, it's like if you had that was it the Ghost of Christmas? What am I thinking of? It's a Wonderful Life. Like if
Scrooge?
yeah, no, that the Ghost of Christmas Past or whoever was that my
Yeah,
wife loves that
Scrooge.
movie. Yeah, we always watch it, but just like that person who pulled you aside and was like, no, this was the reality that you should have chosen. Like this was your best path forward to make that good bogey. And look at how beautiful your scores would be. But yeah, that to me is like one of the most important paradoxes in golf is like the more good bogeys you make, the lower your handicap will go. Guarantee. You can take that to the bank. There's no arguments there. Like that is part of the math of golf.
Here's a paradox that I posted recently that caused a little bit of a stir. A better putting stroke, and by the way, we have to define this. A better putting stroke does not automatically make you score lower. In
So like
fact,
a less
you
variable.
may
Yeah.
miss more putts with a better putting stroke. Now,
So better being less variable, like less face rotation, like whatever.
I would define, and I think most people would agree, a better putting stroke is one that starts the ball on your intended line
Yeah,
more
face
often.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, this goes all the way back to Peltz's research from like the 1990s. He found that the average player only plays 30% of the actual break. So if you stand over a putt that breaks 3 feet, and you ask an amateur how much does this break, they will say about a foot. Even the best in the world, professionals, only play 2/3 of the break. So again, that 3-foot breaking putt, a pro would stand over it and say it breaks 2 feet. Now, if you get better at rolling the ball on the wrong line, you will make fewer putts. So what Peltz found was when players stood into the shot, they would make these unconscious adjustments. A technical person would call them compensations. A motor learning expert would call them positive variability. So, say for example, you got a putt that breaks 9 inches to the right. Pro is going to say this breaks 6 inches. Then they step into the shot and they adjust things. They may line up a little closer to the true line. Then they may pull it up the slope an inch or so, and then eventually, get closer to holding it. So these are things called positive variability. So yeah, that's why a better putting stroke, one that rolls it on your intended line, basically reduces positive variability. And as most people are pretty poor at reading, they need that positive variability. And so I've seen where this is practical. I know people are like, what do you do? Well, where this is practical is you have to practice reading as well. And I've seen players who practice only their stroke. So they say, I'm bad at putting. Right? And they go off and they practice their stroke over and over and over and over. Block practice, same shot, they're rolling putts. And then they get in the course and they're still bad. It's like maybe the problem wasn't your stroke. In fact, maybe getting a better stroke is actually making you worse here, and it's not going to improve. Your performance isn't going to improve until you improve your reading.
The episode we did with Ralph Bauer, I really liked that episode because I'll encourage people to go back to that one because he brought up that point a lot. And he's done a lot of great research on like measuring people's putting strokes. And he has his own greed reading system. I believe it's called Tor Read. But, his contention was based on his many years of teaching putting that the variable, so there's three variables of making putts, speed, face control, which is really start line, and green reading. And he felt that a lot of golfers get such bad feedback for putting because their reads are so off. So they're getting all of this like reinforcement that's just totally wrong about their putting stroke, where it's like, oh, I pulled that one. It's like, no, your read was way off. And as someone, I used to be a very bad reader of greens, and I, obviously credit Aim Point for helping me. Not saying Aim Point's for everyone, but when I look back at like before and after, I'm like, I didn't become that much better of a technical putter. I don't think I just became a much better green reader, and more putts started dropping. And yeah, I think that variable cannot be overstated. And that was one of the main points of that episode was that if you're not reading greens well, then like everything else you're seeing is like not the best information. Like until you get that variable closer to right, then you can really see if you're pushing and pulling putts.
I'm going to do something really horrible here, and I'm going to really play the sweet spot and play the
Go
devil's
for it.
advocate. I'm going to get slated for this because this is such a out there, out of the box opinion. Oh, it's not even opinion. I've got some data on it. I did a study. In some scenarios, I think of all the caveats here. In some scenarios, improving your reading may actually make you worse as well. I first kind of saw this when I had a good
Well, would it be
putter.
for a good putter, meaning like that would be the
Even for
asterisk for
beginners, it
me.
can. Even for
Really?
beginners. What I will say is this is probably a short-term effect for beginners, and I always rather teach them good reads anyway. And I'm very for like Tor Read, Aim Point. I'm very positive about those things. I recommend them to people. However, we have to be nuanced here. So I had a player who he was very good at putting, insanely good at putting, rolled everything. And I just wanted to like collect some data on him. And so I was asking him, okay, where's your read here? And we would look. And then I saw him do this kind of Peltz level positive variability. So he would stand over a putt and say, oh, this is 3 inches outside the left.
Yeah.
Right. So you'd have a bad read and then he'd
Yeah.
step in there and hit it
And
9
somehow
inches outside the
compensate.
left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't realize he was doing it. It was
Yeah.
all unconscious,
Yeah.
but he was very good at doing it. Now, my mistake was I saw he was doing this and I started to give him feedback. I was like, well, actually, you hit that 9 inches left. He's like, no, I didn't. And so I would start videoing it and showing him.
You
And he's like,
screwed this guy up, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, this was early on in my career, but it taught me a valuable lesson. It's like, oh, wait there. In some scenarios, it can be a better thing for these things to be more of an unconscious behavior. Now,
I
this
agree with
led,
that. That makes sense.
yeah. Now, obviously, if a player is bad at, like me, if
Yeah,
I'm bad at
it's
reading and
exactly.
my conscious read is bad and my unconscious
Yeah,
read is
if
bad,
everything
do
sucks.
Aim Point.
Yeah, exactly. I think that
You
would be
got
the
to be
point there.
careful when you've got a good player who's doing things wrong in air quotes, but they're doing them very, very well. Like
I
Faldo
gotta
with the all ball flight laws, right? Or you had Chris Como had a clip of McElroy talking about how he shapes it. And he said, I like the face to line up with the target and I aim my body with where I want to start it.
yeah, that was the old school way of doing it.
Yeah, but it works, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
this in motor
No, you
learning for
never
people interested. It's called declarative versus procedural
I
knowledge.
think that's just like
Declarative is what you say, and procedural is what you actually do.
yeah, it's just being a good athlete in most instances. Like there are certain people who just figure something out, they solve the problem, and how they solve the problem is like this black box that you cannot understand. And if you open it up, it'll explode.
This is where motor learning gets super interesting. So I actually did a little study with beginner golfers. They were mixed actually. There's some beginners, some like 15 handicap, some good players thrown in there, but they were amateurs. And I first off, I put them on a flat putt and I tested their ability to roll it through. Have you ever seen the Peltz putting trainer?
I
Y
I
Golf
don't
have one
recall
now.
it. Yeah, that
Y
well, like
Golf
the gate, kind of like the gate
the
drill.
gate, yeah. So it's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
little
yeah. The
square. You
newer
put the
ones are
ball
great.
on it.
Y Golf's made a good one. There's a few really good ones out there now.
So to test your ability, start the ball online. So I put them on a flat putt and I just gave them a simple task. I want you to hit 20 putts and I want you to see how many times you can start this through the gate. And we measured, right? And say they got, let's just say for argument's sake for this, they got all 20 through the gate, right? Then I put them on a sloping putt that I knew had a lot of break to it, say 3 foot of break, 4 foot, sometimes 5 foot of break. I think this putt had, if I remember rightly. And I would get them to roll putts towards this hole. And I would measure how many they got within 2 feet of it. Right. And say they got 20 out of 20 in this 2 foot area. Now, the third stage, I would get them to line the putter, the Peltz putting thing, towards where they thought the start
Yeah,
line was. So they would line it up and they would all start it at third of the true break. They would all start it like a foot away, right? So the wrong break. And then I saw how often do they get it through the gate. And because of the positive variability, they would stand over this misaligned device. And then obviously their unconscious will kick in and they would try and pull it. And they would end up not getting it through the gate. So their ability to roll it through the gate dramatically dropped down. Then the next stage, I would ask them, I want you to try and get it through the gate. Right. So now I'm forcing them. I'm changing their locus of attention from get it to the target to get it through the gate. Now their ability to get it through the gate went up, which shows how important locus of attention is. Where we focus changes what happens, but their ability to control the speed became horrendous because obviously they're not focusing on the end result. And finally, the last stage was I lined up the Peltz putting thing to the actual break, so a 3 foot of break, and then I asked them to roll through. And their ability to roll through it was still poor. And their ability to get the speed was still poor, but it was better. So that study, if you want to go and read it, just type in Adam Young golf putting study. It goes through all of the studies that I've done, all the facets of the studies, but there's so many fascinating things from there. And basically, it means that even in the short term, at least, telling someone the right break might not improve them. So say I'm caddying. Imagine I'm caddying for an amateur, right? And they stand over a putt and they say, I think this is 2 foot of break. And I look at it and say I've got a perfect read in my brain. And I say, actually, this is 5 foot of break. I might not tell that person. Because if you tell them it's 5 foot of break, you're screwing up with their unconscious
yeah.
decisions.
I often don't like the times I use caddies in tournaments. I tell them like
Yeah,
very
don't give me
politely,
the read.
don't give me a read. I do this. If I'm very confused, I'll bring you in. This is the opposite. I caddied for one of my friends, and he sees me putt, and he's like, "Oh, you're pretty good with aim point. Like, could you do my reads today in the tournament?" And after 9 holes, he's like, "We can't do this anymore." It's just like
Yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, you have your own like, and there are instances where that could work for certain people, but like, yeah, you might have these again, this black box that works for you that is hard to explain, but you just kind of have it.
So both a false dichotomy and a paradox here. On the one side, improving your putting mechanics, improving your ability to start the ball on your intended line may make you worse. There's a paradox. And improving your read may make you worse. Improving your conscious read may make you worse. The false dichotomy there is to say that's always the case. It's not always the case. As I said, may is the key word there, and also over time it may change. So there's a whole spectrum of, or a whole gamut of different things here that go into it. This is why
Well,
you
we're
need
trying.
this is why a coach helps to
Yeah,
kind
well,
of
yeah. I mean, there's two
gauge
reactions I
what you
have here.
need.
Is like one, how badly can we make people's brains hurt in this
Yeah,
episode? And two, yes, filtering is the ultimate solution to all of this. Can you filter it yourself? Or if you can't, can you hire someone who can? And that is what coaching is, like someone who could filter all of this and communicate it to you in a way that makes sense.
yeah. But what I don't want to be on record is saying that improving your stroke always makes you better, or improving your read always makes you better, because I don't believe that's true. There are
No,
too
I
many
mean,
cases where it
especially
doesn't.
with especially with putting, like I mean, I could tell you, you know, Mackenzie Hughes, who for years is one of the best putters in the world, and last year he really struggled with his putting. I think he went down to like 80th strokes gained, and we would talk about endlessly. He had Ralph Bauer look at his stroke, and he's like, "Hey, nothing wrong here." It just it is putting can be this I mean, the golf swing is a black box, but I think putting is even a bigger black box
Yeah, yeah.
where sometimes even that episode we did with Ralph where he was showing some data on measuring people with like different breaking putts and reads and like how people's strokes would change and that would reduce performance for some. Like it is a wild. That's why I try not to think too deeply about putting. I just try and be instinctual as I can, and it seems to work for me. But yeah, it is a such a crazy like when you really think about putting, and some of our most popular episodes, by the way, are always with the putting instructors. I don't think that's a coincidence either.
This is
It
why
is a true mystery.
this is why I like more nuanced putting instructors, because they can think outside the box and they can
Yeah.
see where certain things will apply. Whereas I suppose some of the I don't want to say worst putting instructors, because that's too harsh. But if someone's too strict, like if someone's like, no, you have to improve your read,
Yeah, yeah,
you've got
yeah.
a poor conscious read, you have to, and we have to get you starting the ball exactly online. They might have taken like a Nicholas or someone, and ruined them. There may be scenarios where that would be the case, or you never know. Like even if you take amateur golfers and you improve them, you may still have held them back without knowing it, right? Because you could take a golfer and you could say, oh, well, I got this person from a 30 handicap to 20 handicap in a year. And you might say, yeah, but with a different approach, they might have got to 10 in that same year. You actually held them
Well,
back.
I
Or
think
even
in
with no approach at all, even if they were just left to their own devices practicing, they might have got to a 15 handicap. This is why in true studies, in good studies, control groups are kind of important as well.
it is kind of like a brave decision to make, like as a instructor, because in terms of just putting in general, like what you stand to get, like you look at the stats for everyone, like once you get outside of 6 feet, like most of them are not going in. Like there's a very low success rate. It is emotionally charged part of the game where like, you miss it, you're upset, and you make it, you're excited. And it's and also like the separation ability is lower than let's say iron play or driver play. Like there's only so good you can get at putting, right? Unless you're trying to make millions of dollars playing professionally golf, then it becomes like, oh, you need to make more 15 footers. Like that's just you can look at certain players and you're like, if you don't make more of these, like you're not going to make a living. Like that's just a fact. But luckily for everyone else, like the stakes aren't that high. But yeah, you're never going to have someone where you like give 'em a putting lesson. Man, I made a bunch of 20 footers today. You're like, no, this doesn't happen. Like the odds of that. I think there was one instance where I got so hot with my putter. I calculated, I think I made like 130 feet of putts in like 4 or 5 holes. I just went crazy. I'm like, that can happen with ball striking, driving. I could stripe it. Like that'll never happen again with my putter.
Yeah, but when that
It's like a
happens with
shooting
us,
star.
when what happens to us, we're logical about it. We're like, this is just one of those days. I'm pulling out royal flushes here. That's all
It
it
was
is. It's not
one
in
of the
my
most
control.
exciting moments of my golf life for sure. It was
Well,
exciting, but I was also
that's
like,
an
because the
interesting
odds are
thing.
so crazy.
The interesting thing about humans, there's a guy, Darren Brown, who did a study where he got tons of guys in a room, guys and girls in a room, and he got them to flip coins. And he got them to keep going
Yeah,
until
yeah,
one
yeah.
person had 10 heads in a row. And then afterwards, he interviewed them. He said, so what caused you to get 10 heads in a row. And this person said, oh, well, I was doing this with
Yeah,
my,
yeah,
they mentioned something that they thought they had some control over. And then they said, oh, can you demonstrate that for us again? And obviously next time he had 5 heads, 5 tails. And it's like, oh, it seems to stop working. Maybe I'm not doing it right. And you see this with golfers as well. Like I had a guy who holds 3 30-foot putts in a round. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. This is what's
yeah,
causing me
yeah.
to
This
hold it.
is
And
it.
I'm just like, oh, come on, dude. It's like,
Read
but
the book "Fooled by Randomness," one of the greatest books ever written. "Fooled by Randomness" is a
yeah, that sounds like something I would like. I like all these
it is fan Nicholas
fooled
Nassim
by
Taleb.
randomness. Fooled by
He's
randomness.
changed a lot since then, so if I've got people who don't like what he says currently, I think he's changed a lot in terms of his, beliefs, but that book was unreal, and one of those examples was, like, he looks at the finance world, which I'm interested by, and stock pickers and hedge fund managers, and it said, like,
Yeah.
if you started with 1,000 of them, eventually you're going to settle on the 3 or 4 who always got it right,
Yeah.
and are
I
they
got a
truly skilled, or was it your coin flipping exercise?
I got a guy at the moment who's following this guy on Twitter, and he says, "This guy's made me so much money." He showed me his account, and
Yeah.
hey, it's impressive.
Can
But
you
I
give
know
me
I
the
used
handle
to,
after we're done? No, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I said to him, hey, maybe this guy has something. Or maybe if you put 1 million stock traders and they're all
Yeah,
telling you their picks on Twitter, there's going
yeah,
to be 3, 4, 5 who go for a full year where they get a lot correct.
yep,
Now, does that make this guy special? Or does that mean it's what is it, the survivorship bias logical fallacy? And so I've just said, dude, just be careful because, you could blow your account up. I don't know if you know, I used to trade Forex for a little bit. I got into it and I was just very careful with it. And it was the same idea. You'd get 1,000 Forex traders, 5 to 10 of them would be successful. And then they would promote their courses and inevitably
yeah,
10 years later, they're nowhere to be found
yeah,
because it's
yeah.
just they've blown their accounts. But
Prediction
yeah,
prediction is a really tough game. That's why I'm not in it. But yeah, I would recommend. I think. Let me see how old that book is. I'm gonna Google it. I think I read it maybe when I was in college.
but yeah, the golf related thing here is once you start holding 30-foot putters, if you have 2 in a row or something like that, it doesn't mean you found the secret.
Yeah, you have it. It was written in 2001. So yes, I
Right.
did. That was my first year of college, if I'm remembering correctly.
I mean, where that can go against people, really, the whole false correlation thing. You see it on the range. Like, if you ever ask why a person has developed such a weird looking swing, have you ever seen those Instagram reels? They're like, look at this guy's swing, and he's
Yeah,
doing all
yeah.
these
They're like
weird
it's a
twitches and
gotcha.
things.
Yeah,
It's basically a Skinner box pigeon experiment, where you stand there, you hit a good shot, right? Imagine you're a beginner, you hit a good shot. The brain automatically goes, "What did I do there?"
yeah. That
And then
what
you
was
say,
it?
oh, you start searching for feels and you're like, oh, I think I took it away a little outside on that one. Okay,
That's
let me
it.
try that again. Now, hey, if your second one, when you take it away outside, is good, Skinner box pigeon, you are locked in then. Within a week, your pattern is way outside. Because if you don't hit a good shot with a third one, you try and do it more. And then it's, oh no, that wasn't good. Let's try more. Let's try more. Oh, that was a good one. And this false correlation can then lead you into all these wild, weird things. That's why it's important to actually say what actually happened here, which is where I always go to our big three, because those are the things that actually create. They're not just correlators to good level of success, they actually cause good success. Then you can start to branch off from there carefully.
I have more paradoxes, but I feel like we melted everyone's brains. I think we should stop there. That's my instinct.
For this kind of stuff. Yeah, I need the restroom, so yeah, we need to stop.
I'm in I am making it's actually a YouTube video that I'm going to shoot next week. So there's more of them. So I'll toot my own horn there. Go to my YouTube channel for more. But yeah, I was thinking about these things like what are opposing things that can be true at the same time that don't make sense and hurt your brain. Obviously, we did some of yours as well. But yeah, it's just like I don't know. It's just I always see that meme where like someone starts off with the no understanding, then they have the false confidence in the middle, then they end up back in the
Yeah, I
same
love that
place.
one. I love
Yeah,
that one.
it's a great meme, but it's like that's kind of I remember when I first started blogging about golf, like I was regurgitating like the dumbest like cliches ever, like all about wedges, and I just some of my early ideas were okay, some of them were really bad. And like the more I learn and experience, like the less sure I am of certain things, or at least maybe I'm more sure that there's different explanations, right? So I guess that's what this episode was about, is that, yeah, there is a lot of opposing things can be true, things that seem logical could be wrong at times. There's incredible nuance and it's hard to understand at times. And that's why coaching is beneficial.
That chart is very apt. For those who don't know, it's a chart. It's a inverse U shape, and on the left side, there's like this simpleton saying something simple, and then at the middle, at the peak of the bell curve, is like a guy who's like kind of intelligent. No, it's basically the Dunning-Kruger chart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a guy at the middle saying something super complex. It sounds very intelligent. And then on the right side, there's a Jedi, and he's
Yeah.
gone back to the simple stuff. And so
Yes.
from the outset, the simpleton and the Jedi look as if they're saying the same thing, but they're coming from very different backgrounds. And it's like, it's like the whole, when I say, hey, steep offers a bigger margin for error, you get these people commenting on my post saying, oh, but if you chunk it, then steep is worse. It's like, don't you think I don't you think I know that? Like I've been teaching for 25 years. Not 25. Yeah, 20. Yeah, 20 years at least. Uh, that old stuff, don't you think I heard that? Why do you think I question that? I'm not questioning it to be contradictory. I'm questioning it and giving opposing views because I have different information. It's like but obviously people look at you say, "Hey, steep is okay," and they think that you're on the simpleton side of it, whereas you've come over the hump. I don't want to say Jedi, but
The
the Jedi
Jedi hump.
instructor.
That's a great
But
it's one of my favorite memes. People always use that when it's like whatever the flavor of the week is like in the world, whether it's like, last week we were all contagious disease experts and now we're all geopolitical experts and now we're all, monetary policy experts. Like everyone,
mm,
yeah, we all do this. We all overestimate our expertise on things. And then when you really focus on a topic and really develop expertise, like one person I always think about, I will toot Chris's horn. One of the reasons I do respect um, Chris Como so much when we had him on the show is like, for a guy at the top of the game, right? I think he's been, the rankings are so absurd in general, but like one of the top ranked golf instructors in the world. And you ask him a question, he's like, I'm not sure. It could be this, it could be, if
yeah.
someone that, on top of the game can be that humble and open to things, then like I think that's a good lead to take for some people.
Confidence usually scares me more than someone who's more, I don't want to say unconfident, but more nuanced. Like if you
Well,
ask
yeah,
Chris, I don't think he's not
no,
unconfident or
he
like, I
he
don't
knows
know,
his, yeah.
but he say this
It's
applies in this scenario. This
yeah.
might apply in that scenario. That's a
He's
different level
obviously
of confidence.
very, very, very smart and understands so many things about golf, but we've asked him questions and he's kind of been like, yeah, that's not 100% slam dunk here answer because
Well,
he knows
Sasha's the
so
same as
much.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, like those are the type of people I'm interested in listening to. It's not my way, the highway, or this is the only right answer. It's like, well, I used to think this, but then we explored this deeply and it got me thinking. And I'm like, now, we kind of think this, but there's more work to be done. Like, this is not solved. Like, we're
Yeah.
operating with what we think is the best information right now, but it is subject to change. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's like, if you look at me when I first started as an instructor, I would tell everybody, yeah, like we have to make your putting mechanics absolutely perfect and we have to get your read perfect. Why 20 years later do I have a more nuanced opinion of that? It's not because I've lost knowledge. I've gained knowledge, which has made my opinion more nuanced. So when someone like if I say having a better putting stroke may make you worse, people think, oh, you're on the simpleton end of the curve, whereas the reality is, no, I've tested certain things, I've gathered data, which made me question that initial assumption. I'd love if the world was very black and white. Just, oh yeah, just let's swing by numbers. That's how when I first got into golf instruction, I thought this is going to be so awesome. I just have to get someone to have a perfect backswing, a perfect takeaway, halfway back, top of the swing. perfect setup. We just have to go through these numbers in this order. I believed in the old cause and effect. Yeah, if you get the first link in the chain, all the rest of it will just fall in place. And then you start instructing, you start dealing with real humans, you start interjecting, and you start to, this only really works if a coach really questions their own stuff as well. If you sit down, because I've seen a lot of coaches give bad lessons and not question themselves. They're just like, oh yeah, it has to be this way. Whereas me and my friends, one of the coaches I constantly bounce ideas off, we come in, even after a good lesson, we come in and we're like, could that have been better? Could that have been different? Where did this go? Is there a blind spot here? And we used to constantly question it. I think that's such an important trait. That's what Chris Como has, Sasho has, my friend Anthony has as well. Yeah. And obviously yourself. That's why you're here with me, questioning everything.
All right, let's let these poor people go and take some
Yeah. Bye
aspirins for their
everyone.
headache. Sorry for
Bye.
what we did to you or didn't do
Be
to
more
you, but
nuanced in your thinking, people. It'll put you in
as
the
always,
top 5%.
we appreciate you getting, I forget the phrase. I listened to this show, Colin and Samir. They're a great like resource for like creators and YouTubers, and they always, I think it's you reach the deep end. They always say when you get to the end of the episode. We need to come up with a
Agreed.
phrase, yeah, and when you make it to the end of our episode. So anyway, thank you for making it to the end of the episode. If you want to see some more of my thoughts on this topic, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, plug John Sherman Golf. And Adam, where can everyone find your stuff?
AdamYoungGolf.com. Tons of articles, tons of free content, there's free ebooks on there. Sign up to the newsletter. And obviously, I've got paid premium content there as well. All right. Bye,
See you
everyone.
next time. Bye.